And as a clinician, I could give them all the herbs, all the supplements in the world. But if they were not willing to change their dietary and lifestyle changes,
Yeah.
nothing was really ever going to change. And so I reached a point with these people where I told them, I'll take you on as a client after you have followed a 30-day dietary and lifestyle change regimen, and
Mhm.
then you can come back to me. And I would never hear back from a single person. Don't look at other people and judge yourself by that because I will tell you, I have talked to social media influencers who have 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 followers,
Mhm.
and every single one of them will tell you the same thing,
Mhm.
that what you see on their social media page is so far from their real lives because
True.
everybody is putting out there what they want people to see.
Welcome everyone. Welcome to another episode of Your Lab Central. Today I'm joined by Bonnie. So Bonnie, would you like to tell us why we should be excited about our conversation today?
Yeah, I think you should be excited about the conversation today because I think my story can inspire some people who feel a little lost in life and maybe are entering into their 40s and still wondering what their purpose is and what they're supposed to do with themselves. And so I'd like to give everybody a little hope that even if it's coming to you late, it does eventually come.
So where did you finally find your purpose? Let's start from there before we go to the beginning.
So I will say I finally found my purpose after my third degree. So I have changed my career path three times in life. And it really came from other people in my life telling me that I was really, really good at something and I should pursue it as a
Okay.
career path. And I thought to myself, well, I've already gone to college twice for two different careers. I don't know that I'm gonna go back to college a third time. And I wasn't really sure like what a clear-cut path for what I wanted to do was. I had a love for all things natural medicine
Mhm.
and health, but there wasn't a definitive like this is the way I want to take. I
Right.
wasn't going to go get a medical degree.
Yeah.
And so I was listening to a podcast by a favorite astrologer, and he mentioned that his wife had a master's of science degree in herbal medicine, and
Mhm.
it was this light bulb moment that kind of gave me a clear path to do what I had loved. And I'll just tell the listeners, prior to that, I was working as a goldsmith. And then
Yeah.
prior to that, I was in the fashion design field. So very non-related
Mhm.
to natural medicine, but it had been a lifelong journey of my own health and my children's health that had led me into having a lot of knowledge and wisdom about natural health. And one of my friends always called me her encyclopedia. She said, "You're my smart friend." And I tell everybody I have a friend who's an encyclopedia and she knows everything. And I always joke, I say, well, I don't know everything. I just know a lot about the questions that you ask me about.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, part of what like I said, when we first started, what I'd like to share is that not everybody has this direct, clear path in life.
Yeah.
Sometimes we try some things, it
Mhm.
doesn't work out, we don't love it, we try something else. Maybe it works out, and I earned a pretty good living for a good decade as a
Yeah.
goldsmith, but I wasn't in love with what I was doing. I
Mhm.
didn't feel like I was serving my purpose, and I had a lot of anxiety
Mhm.
going to work during the day, just feeling like this was not fulfilling to me at all. And I was good at what I did, and I made people happy, and they liked the work I did for them, but at the same time, I wasn't fulfilled in it.
Yeah.
And I was almost 40 years old by the time I
Right.
went to college for a third time I got my master's degree.
So, since there's a lot of people hearing who are stuck in some career they don't want to be in, so just wanted curious here to ask as to in the two times that you've changed your career paths, what was the trigger that actually, I mean, you must have been there for a while, you were doing pretty good, especially in your previous, I'm not sure about how it was in fashion design, but just as to what triggered, at which point did you flip?
Yeah, so I would say that they were pretty drastic flips. When it came
Mhm.
to fashion design, I was definitely at the top of my game. I
Mhm.
was voted the top 10 to watch as an upcoming designer, and it shocked all of my family when I packed up everything, left the city, and moved out to the middle of nowhere to an
Mhm.
Amish log cabin that didn't even have running water. And
Okay.
I lived there for a year and a half and just really needed a reconnection to the land. I felt very alienated from myself and from my purpose. And it wasn't something that I could put my finger on and say, like, this was what was wrong with my life. It was an internal feeling of just being unsettled, kind of like those butterflies in your stomach,
Yeah.
where you just feel like something's
Mhm.
wrong, but you can't put words to
Yeah.
it. And so I did, just in the middle of everything, just pack up and leave. And then, some fast forward another 10 years, my second career change, because I ended up going back to the city eventually and going back to my work, but my second career change came after a divorce. And I had one of my dresses had won an award in the city of Chicago and had been turned into a metal sculpture and was
Okay.
on Michigan Avenue in front of the Chicago Tribune building. And I remember watching them make my dress into a metal
Hmm.
sculpture and just thinking it was the coolest process, watching them do this and thinking to myself, someday I want to do this.
All right.
And after my divorce, I moved back home to Detroit, where I'm from, and decided to attend a local college here that had a metalsmithing and jewelry design program. And I was like, I'm gonna restart my life and pursue this thing that I always wanted to do. And it worked out really well for me. I spent a
Right.
decade doing it until I just had this feeling that the next phase of my life was coming. I just
Hmm.
didn't know what it was. And I think there was a good, probably 2 year interval between this feeling of knowing that something needed to change and before that change came. And I think that's like for the listeners too, that's really important. We can sometimes have this just deep feeling of anxiety that we know that something needs to change, but it's not yet right. It's like the apple on the tree that's not ripe yet. And if you try and
Hmm.
take a bite out of that apple, it's going to be really bitter and hard. And if you wait for the fruit to ripen, it's going to be much sweeter than if you kind of dive at it. And I've talked to other people who were kind of in that same position and they're like, "Well, how did you figure out how to do what you love?" And I said, "Well, it took a lot of work too. I had to
Hmm.
maintain my job as a goldsmith to support my family and work until
Yeah.
midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning to build an entirely new business."
Yeah.
And then to promote that and to go out into the world with something that I was very passionate about. And
Hmm.
I think that the last thing, being passionate about something, people can see that come through
Hmm.
when you have a love for something, and it's a love not just for something for myself. Like, I now get to help people.
Yeah.
I consult with people who have chronic medical conditions such as cancer,
Hmm.
and they don't want to go through chemotherapy and radiation, and they're looking for an alternative solution. And so I get to help them along their path to fulfilling their wishes to have a natural route for treatment, and then help them to get to stay alive and live a healthy life and to do it the way that they choose to do it. So I don't really think of it as a job. I think of it as a blessing that I get to do something for people.
Hmm.
And in building my herbal products company, the focus always was helping people who had chronic conditions that were unable to live their lives. So one of our herbal products is for people who have fibromyalgia. And if anybody knows anything about fibromyalgia, most people who have fibromyalgia, they're unable to work. They're in such severe, debilitating pain that on a daily basis, they're usually not able to get out of bed. They're not able to clean their house. It's very, very difficult for them. And so it is a blessing to be able to help these people and to see the smile on their face and to see them be able to play with their grandkids and to live
Yeah.
their life or to cook again. And so that's fulfilling your true purpose.
Yeah.
And every single person here on this earth, I do believe, has a true purpose to help humanity to grow and be what we all want to see out of this
Yeah.
world. And the more that we can tap into that true purpose, the more we're going to contribute to the overall success of the entire globe.
Now, one thing that you mentioned that passion always shines through was actually shining through that whole everything that you mentioned and about purpose that we talked about. Uh, Two things here, passion and purpose. Okay. Now, I want to understand. You started off feeling that yeah, your passion was fashion design, or yeah, at one point you thought that yeah, I want to try what I always wanted to try, which is goldsmithing. But then passion was there, right? But did you also feel that you had purpose at some point during the beginning phases of those careers as well?
I think, so part of me is a very creative person. I like
Yeah.
to create things very, very artistic. And as a child, my mother made us handmade
Mm,
clothes and handmade dresses. And so I grew up learning how to sew. And when I finished high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I actually didn't start college for 2 years after I graduated high school because I didn't have like this clear direction. And going into fashion design was me trying to find something that I was really, really good at that other people said,
right.
well, why don't you do this? You're really good at this. And it's not to say that I wasn't passionate and that I didn't love it and that I wasn't very, very creative. And I think at that point in my life, I was not the person that I am now. There was a lot of spiritual growth that had to take
Yeah.
place. And part of that was living out in the middle of nowhere with no running water for a year and a half really, really changes a person.
Yeah.
I'd say I recommend it, but I don't really recommend it.
Yeah, such critical moments, such experiences have a very twisting effect on different people, differs from person to person. But yeah, most people come out better off from such experiences. So about your purpose in life and how you're helping people, can you just tell us more about it?
Yeah, so I got my Master's of Science degree in herbal medicine, and I started my clinical practice. And for a while, I was taking, essentially whatever clients came to me, and most of them would have conditions like diabetes or atherosclerosis, and they were looking for some natural solutions to help them to
Yeah,
manage their chronic conditions. And so I would work with them, but the one thing that I found was the underlying true issue that these people had was their dietary and lifestyle
yeah,
changes. And as a clinician, I could give them all the herbs, all the supplements in the world. But if they were not willing to change their dietary and lifestyle changes,
yeah,
nothing was really ever going to change. And so I reached a point with these people where I told them, I'll take you on as a client after you have followed a 30-day dietary and lifestyle change regimen,
mhm,
and then you can come back to me. And I would never hear back from a single person. And it was this really like clear moment that people have to be ready to change within themselves.
yeah,
And I became interested in traditional Chinese medicine. They have a Fu Zeng Ling principle, which is what they use as their standard principle for treatment of
mhm,
cancer. And I became very fascinated with it because a friend of mine was dying of cancer. And so I was looking for ways to help him in the best of my capacity, even though I had never worked with somebody before. And then just people started coming to me, and
okay,
people started sending people to me, and it just became like I found that I really loved it because these people were in a position in which they were willing to do anything.
hmm,
They would change their diet, they would change their lifestyle without blinking an eye.
hmm,
And I found that it gave hope to me as a clinician feeling a little despondent about, helping people and whether it was something I even wanted to do. And so I loved that change and I found that it gave me value in my life and gave them value in their lives. But the other big focus was in my herbal products company. And
hmm,
so my husband is a botanist and a research scientist, and he had long
okay,
been working on a patent pending process using a silica plasma hydrate as a delivery
okay,
method for helping people. And they had had success with people who had brain tumors and other types of tumors and cancers. And so I started working with him to combine herbal medicine into this patent pending process to help as a topical relief. And of course, we expanded beyond that because here in the US, we're very, very limited as to like, I can't treat people with cancer. I can't treat people with any type of medical condition. I'm not a medical doctor. And even if I was, I probably would find myself in trouble with the FDA if I was using these natural remedies on my clients one way or the other. So we don't market them as that, but we have a wide range of topical products that have really helped people with a number of debilitating conditions from, neuropathy to rheumatoid arthritis, any type of chronic pain condition. We found that our topicals were really effective. And one of
hmm,
the most beautiful things that we found in some of our tests and trials was that one of our topicals actually helped people who had had a limb amputated. So
hmm,
people who suffer from amputations get what's called phantom pain. And
yeah,
there is no pharmaceutical medicine on the market that can get rid of their phantom pains. And part of the beauty about our patented topical is that it helps with this restructuring of the energetic signals within the body.
Mhm.
And we found that when we tested it on people who had had a leg amputated, then in 2 to 3 minutes, their phantom pains were gone.
All right.
And it was this just super miraculous moment. And to see people like in tears, they are so grateful to have something that has helped them with their suffering. That's where passion and purpose like went to a whole new level. Like, yes,
Yeah.
I was passionate and creative about my art, but I wasn't really impacting people's lives in a way that was making a difference for people. And I
Right.
had always been passionate in wanting to help people in volunteering and being on boards of nonprofits. And so it really gave me a way to fulfill the inner
Mhm.
purpose that was like the higher calling. My dad
Yeah.
always said it, we have our vocation and then we have our avocation. And when we
Right.
can blend both our vocation and our avocation together, that's when true passion and purpose comes together.
Mhm. Now, there are two different directions of questions that I want to go through. One is the business, and the other is I don't know how much medical science I know, so I'm still doubtful about that question. But first, let's get to the business part of things. You talked about that a lot of your patients, the earlier ones, like when you helped your friend with cancer and his pain, and with your solutions. He sent another person, and then there were a lot of people coming just by word of mouth, right? So just want to understand now that you're running a business, okay? So how are still people coming in by just word of mouth, or now are you using other mediums to market your idea and market your products, and how is it working out?
So now I get sent people from other doctors.
Okay.
So I've really kind of narrowed in. So our herbal products company is strictly a topical based, and we work with like a special delivery system that can cross the skin blood brain barrier. And the importance about having the epidermal like through the skin application is that when we ingest something, it goes through metabolic processes in our body that sometimes can alter and change
Yeah.
the end result of that topical. And so this is really, really important because um, we want to be able to deliver the herbal medicine unchanged into the person's body.
Yeah.
And so by having this topical application, we are able to do this. So so kind of rewind. So our focus is like strictly topical, and we really started specializing in these topical applications that could penetrate deep into the tissue, so like tumors and lymph nodes. And I had a real focus going towards, breast cancer. And one of my research topicals is on a topical that can be applied to the breast in the hopes that it'll actually help to prevent a
Mhm.
person from getting breast cancer. So kind of a
Okay.
more preventative method versus coming at it after the person already has the cancer. And so I had had a podcast interview with a very famous doctor and had explained the topicals and the process and what they do. And after the interview, he sent me first one client from his clinic who
Okay.
had a sublingual tumor under the tongue. And so I made a special custom formula for that client. And then they sent me another one, and this client had a sinus tumor. And so that kind of built that relationship because people were coming to him because he was a very, very well-known, famous
Yeah.
doctor. And then he was using me to help to make a kind of specialized product because well he was very good at what he does. He's not into herbal medicine. And so that was just
Mhm.
a different kind of angle that he was not familiar with.
Mhm. So yeah, one was the specialists calling you out and sending you their patients, but I'm talking from a commercial perspective. Have you used social media or any kind of advertising for spreading the word about your products?
Yeah, so as far as social media goes, I've tried a couple different approaches with that and
Mm.
used other several different angles in to
Mhm.
build a social media account. And what I found with social media is it wasn't the best at advertising my product. What it was really good was getting me a following of people who really liked to listen to what I had to say.
Right.
And so in just a matter of like I think it was less than 6 months, I built a social media following of over 4,000 followers.
Hmm.
And people were really engaged in my content. And part of how I did that was I was working with larger influencers who had larger social media accounts, and I was giving them free products and
Hmm.
then doing a collaboration with them. And
Hmm.
that was what was helping to build my page. And one of the things that one of the social media influencers said to me that really impacted me is she said, I want to know more about your life. She said, forget your products. Like, I want to know more about you. Can you just start telling me about your life, your farm, the things that you do? And it was this realization of like, people weren't really interested necessarily
Hmm.
in the products. The product was secondary. What people were interested in was my life,
Yeah.
and that I had to put more of that out there. And that's what built the social media account.
So I've heard that now it's becoming a pattern. I don't know why. It's just that whenever I ask somebody if they have a business and that business is truly built on purpose, the people are not exactly looking for the product. The people are looking for the purpose behind the whole business itself, and they want to know the story of the founder or the entrepreneur who's the brain and the who created the whole business itself and how it's come into this world. And that's where the story lies. That's where people are interested, and that basically you're just repeating what the world is saying, right? We are more interested in the person rather than the product itself. The product might have 100 different benefits, but then people are not exactly so much I mean, they're using the product for its benefits, but when you have purpose driving the product itself, it's a whole different story altogether. Now for the product about the it's a I don't know, a dumb kind of question for the phantom pain thing. Just from a cynic perspective, the phantom pains, as far as I understand, since there's no limb, it just kind of originates in the brain, is as much as I understand. You could correct me if I'm wrong. So how is it that your product is specifically working and it's not more of a trust thing that they trust your product more, so it just triggers the brain to shut the pain out?
Yeah, okay, so this is gonna we could do a whole podcast show on why this works. So I'm gonna try and like shorten that into
Yeah.
like a 5 minute explanation for the best that I can. And that's gonna be really, really hard to do because we have to explain some backstory and some
Yeah.
understanding of the body. So
Hmm.
I will say that like I come to this from not just like a physical educational background
Yeah.
as well. I have a very strong spiritual training and background
Hmm.
that has preceded all of this for years with
Yeah.
spiritual teachers and a lot of what we would be called esoteric trainings,
Yeah.
things that aren't common knowledge. So I think the first thing that like I'd like to establish before I explain the topical is that the human body is not just a physical body. Most people
Yeah.
know it as a body, spirit, and soul.
Yeah.
But the
True.
human body is actually a four part. We represent a cross, and
Mm.
this is why the cross is used, kind of esoterically as a symbol of the human being. So
Mm.
we have on the lower part of the cross, we have two bodies, essentially, you could call them. You have a physical body and an etheric body, or what is also called in like more Indian traditions is your prana or your life body or your
Yeah.
energy body. And when we're speaking about this etheric body, what we're speaking about is we're speaking about what sometimes people would often say is they see as like a ghost when a dead person is gone, because
Mm.
the etheric body actually has the identical form to the human body and looks like the human body, but it is an energetic body.
Yeah.
And so then we have the other two bodies on the top of the cross, but those are not important for this conversation. What's important is this physical and this
Hmm.
etheric. Because the etheric is intricately tied to that physical body
Mm.
energetically. And so what is happening with the phantom pains is that we have removed the physical limb, but
Hmm.
we have not removed the etheric limb.
Hmm.
And so the energetic body still recognizes that that body's there. That's why the person can experience an itch on
Mm.
their limb, and their brain is saying, My foot is itching, but
Hmm.
there's no physical foot there left to itch.
Right.
Okay, so how does the topical work to influence this etheric body? That's really, really important. So
Mm-hmm.
the first thing is that our product contains as its base structure a silicon plasma hydrate. And so when I'm referring to plasma, what I'm referring to is the fourth phase of water. So most people are familiar with three phases of water. We have
Mm-hmm.
solid, liquid, and gaseous. But
Yeah.
there's actually a fourth phase of water, which is a plasma state or a gel-like state.
Yeah.
And this is really important. So everybody knows our body is 65+% water. But
Mm-hmm.
that water is not held in a liquid state. That
Yeah.
water is held in the state of a plasma gel,
Mm-hmm.
same as the other plasma fluids in our body. And this is really important. So, first, we have a substance that is um, mimicking the
Mm-hmm.
state of the water in the body. So, we're trying
Mm-hmm.
to replicate something of the body.
Okay.
Then, secondarily, we have to understand that what we're told in medical science about our nerves
Mm-hmm.
is theory. Everybody
Yeah.
thinks that what they're taught is fact, but we have to understand that a lot of what is contained in those medical books is theory.
Mm-hmm.
And so if one is able to understand the nerves in a different way, you have what's called the myelin sheath, which is essentially a layer of fat
Yeah.
surrounding that tube. And inside that tube is structured water.
Mm-hmm.
It is water that is moving in a vortex. And if anybody's familiar with, for instance, like Dr. Tom Cowan's work about the heart. You also have work by Rudolf Steiner, who suggest that the heart is actually not a pump,
Mm-hmm.
that the heart is a vortex that is moving energy through it. And there's a lot out there for people who are listening. You can go and research that for yourself. You can read their books and understand that far more in depth than we're ever going to get into in this conversation here. So the importance things here
Yeah.
is we're talking about structured water that is in the structure of a vortex held in a plasmic state. Now, what is plasma and why is plasma so important? Because plasma
Mm-hmm.
conducts electromagnetic energy.
Yeah.
The entire known universe is 99% plasma. Space is not empty, it is full of plasma. And it conducts electromagnetic energy along these plasma signaling lines out there in the universe. And our body is exactly like that. If anyone's ever heard the phrase that we are a microcosm of the macrocosm, that's
Yeah.
because we are replicating that. And we're
Mm-hmm.
replicating that in this plasma structured water state. So, what else is in our topicals that helps to influence this structured water and this plasma state outside of our silicon plasma hydrate? We also include orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements or ORMEs, which are really popular in natural medicine right now. And we collect ours from a meteoric rock dust impact on Mount Shasta, which is a holy site here in the United States, and then is purified from this seabed. And we collect the monoatomic gold and we use this monoatomic gold in our topicals. Why do we use it? Because monoatomic gold is shown to repair the myelin sheath and the nerve
Okay.
conductor impulses of the body. So we have the combination of this plasma and this monoatomic gold that is influencing that nervous sheath structure of the body.
Mm-hmm.
So on this subtle energetic level, it is also changing and repatterning the etheric body's structure because how is the etheric body connecting to the human body, to the physical? That is through those electrical magnetic signals. And so this is where allopathic medicine has no answer to this because they have no way to connect electromagnetically
Mm-hmm.
the energetic system flowing from one body to the other. So hopefully that made sense in a nutshell.
Yeah, it definitely does make sense in a nutshell. But yeah, most of it just bounced. Some of it did bounce off my head. I will admit that. But yeah, a lot of it I did relate to. Um, so random question: how many people have you impacted or worked with in your work, specifically in this current phase that you're in?
Okay, so that's going to be an unimpressive number, and I'm just going to put out there to to the public that we just launched our topical line and
Hmm.
started serving the public this past August.
Hmm.
So barely a year underneath our belt. But I would say we're probably getting close to 1,200 people that have used our topicals at this point in time. And hopefully that in the next year, that's really going to change. So we've had limited financial funding because you talked about marketing and social media and
Yeah.
how do you get the word out there? Well, when you don't have a lot of money to invest in
Yeah.
that, it can be really challenging. And
Yeah.
so just last week we were selected for a Michigan, because I lived in the state of Michigan, Women's Forward Business Grant. And so our
Right.
business was awarded $43,000 to pay for marketing services for direct to consumer marketing. And so our hope is that that is really going to be able to launch us into the public sphere so that more people can know that we exist. And then as we grow, we'll be able to serve more and more people.
Now, just going on to this path of women-led businesses, if there's one tip that you want to share with women founders, what would that be across the globe?
The
Random.
answer that came to my head immediately made me laugh. It was just, you can nurse your baby and work at home at the same time.
I still
Um,
don't get it, but yeah.
I think for women out there, I think that especially here in the United States, we definitely are in a cultural change in
Hmm.
which people really want to see women come out there and put out to the world what it is that they have to offer.
Yeah.
And I think that we have been gifted with this healing, nurturing, caring capacity, and the world really needs more of that healing and nurturing and caring out there in the sphere. And I work in the nonprofit realm too. So we've just talked about herbal medicine. We haven't even talked about like the 50 million other things that we do.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that women are so good at. We're really good multitaskers. There's like a long running joke about women, on their resume, the stay-at-home moms, like the list of the 50 different things that they can do simultaneously
Yeah.
while writing their resume. And I think that's like the skill that you have. But I also want to say to all the women out there, like, be kind to yourself.
Hmm.
Like, you have a lot on your plate,
Hmm.
especially when you're a mom and you're trying to start a business and run a family. And so don't look at other people.
Yeah.
Don't look at other people and judge yourself by that, because I will tell you, I have talked to social media influencers who have 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 followers,
Hmm.
and every single one of them will tell you the same thing,
Hmm.
that what you see on their social media page is so far from their real lives, because
True.
everybody is putting out there what they want people to see. Even those people in those multi-million dollar mansions, when you really find out what their life is like, you all of a sudden will have a little bit more gratitude for your own life.
Yeah, I so much agree to that. That I mean, yeah, social media is kind of just blown up to show people what they want to see. Now, before we close, would you like to share some details as to where people can get in touch with you and know more about you?
Yeah, so people can get in touch with me two places. I have my herbal products company, which is etherbal.com, and that's spelled with an A-E-T and then the word herbal.com. And then I also have my website, which is kind of like a data bank where I put all my podcast shows if people want to hear more in depth, because there are other podcasts where we talk just specifically
Mhm.
about the science behind my topicals. And then there are ones that we talk about herbal medicine, and some that I go off on a tangent about plant consciousness, you name it, it's out there. And so if you go to my website, bonniediarcangelo.com, you will find a full list of every single one of the podcasts that I have ever been on, and then all of my individual websites, projects, nonprofit work, you name it, it's on there.
That'll be great. I'll surely check up on what are the other 50 different million different things that you're going on about in life. And yeah, hopefully everything will be turning out great and all the best for your business. Now, before I
Thank you.
close, to the audience, if you like the conversation, do leave a like. If you have something to add to the conversation, if you have a question or you just related to something that we talked about, do leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe before closing the window itself. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you.